It's time for HawgSports Live from HawgSports.com, a division of 24/7 Sports, presented by Crain Automotive. The Crain team's got 'em. Visit them online at crainteam.com. And now with the latest breaking updates on HawgSports, here's Trey Biddy.
What's up, everybody? Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Plenty to talk about on today's show. We'll obviously dive into spring football practice number 5 coming up today, so almost a third of the way through there. We'll talk about some of the things that we're seeing out there. It's almost portal season for basketball. In fact, it is. I mean, really, you see players announcing that they're entering the transfer portal. A lot to be done with Arkansas. I'll talk about some of the things that we're hearing. We're going to bring Connor Goodson on to talk about the latest and what he expects to happen. And Kevin Bohannon's back with us to talk about, I guess Kevin's been gone a little bit, and in that time, Arkansas has lost 4 in a row. So hopefully Kevin's return will bring a little bit of luck back as Arkansas is set to face Auburn in a 3-game series starting today. All that more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. The Crain Automotive Team knows stretching your dollar is important. With prices at the pump, interest rates, and everything else, we focus on making your life more affordable by offering vehicles with the highest rated fuel economy and safety features, plus a large selection of crossover and hybrid vehicles. We make it easy to hit the road with a vehicle that won't break the bank. We have a vehicle for every lifestyle and every budget. Come get one at one of our 17 locations or visit crainteam.com today. Hog Sports Live is driven by the Crain Automotive Team.
You've done it. Now you're the Crain Cash Champ. You just won big with the Crain team. Go ahead, soak it up. How could you not feel like a winner? You dominated with our low price guarantee, and you got way more for your trade. Plus, with statewide delivery on thousands of vehicles from 16 locations, and the fact that we'll beat any other dealer's price, we make our Kansans feel like champions every day. That's winning. That's the Crain team. Visit crainteam.com.
Okay, we're going to bring in Connor Goodson here in just a moment, as I promised. Just want to talk about a couple of the things that we're hearing with basketball. Obviously, the Final Four is coming up. Some of the things that I've kind of been hearing behind the scenes is, and this doesn't mean this is what's going to happen, but this is kind of what they're efforting towards. I've heard they would love to bring back Malik Thomas. Now, how does that work out? You know, he's going to be drafted in the NBA and all this stuff. Well, if Thomas isn't going to be a first rounder, and I've seen him like anywhere from 18 to 38 projected. But like if you're a second rounder, you know, you could get locked into that rookie, you know, that minimum salary, which I think is 1.7 million. You could get locked into that. And it's a very deep draft this year. It's not supposed to be as deep next year. Maybe that'll, in addition with like him improving, maybe that it could improve his draft stock. But anyway, that's something that they're working on from what I'm hearing. Working on bringing DJ Wagner back, Billy Richmond, Carter Knox. I hear things are going that direction also with Isaiah Seeley. You've got the 3 freshmen coming in, 2 of whom were just in the McDonald's All-American game. I actually ended up watching a lot of highlights of Abdu Toure yesterday, I guess. I think I watched a ton of stuff just on YouTube just because he wasn't in the McDonald's game and looks like a guy that maybe should have been. I hear Malik Ewing is probably not returning. He has an announcement set. He said he's going to announce on his Instagram. He put something out like time is next or the time is now or something like that. But anyway, that's what I hear on that. And then I hear they want to bring in 4 big men. Now, how does that work out? How does that work out? That's too many players. Cal's only going to play 8 players, but I mean, you got to have players on the bench. You know, you got to have, and bringing in 4 bigs doesn't mean they're bringing in 4 exceptional bigs. You know, hopefully bring in a great one, a good one, a pretty good one, and you know, one that can do in a pinch. But from what I hear, they are really focused on that number down low, and they have to be because there's nobody coming. If Malik Ewing isn't returning, there's nobody coming back. So that doesn't mean this is how it's going to happen. This is just kind of where things are kind of angling right now, and still a lot to be done. It's going to be a really, really interesting portal season for basketball, and it's different than it's been in years past. Like a couple years ago in 2024, it started like, I think right after Selection Sunday, the next day the portal opened, and it was 45 days. The next year, last year, it was right around the Final Four, I believe, and it lasted 30 days. This year, it's the day after the national championship game. It's on Tuesday, and it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks, you have a diamond. So that doesn't mean that you can't sign with teams. You're not up against it like you were with football. Like you got to get enrolled. You have this window, and you've got to get enrolled by this date, or you're going to miss out on the spring semester. It's not like that with basketball. You have plenty of time, so it could drag on a little bit longer. Just even though you have these 14 days to enter the transfer portal. The freshmen coming in, obviously, J.J. Andrews, who was in the McDonald's game, had 10 points. Jordan Smith Jr., the Gatorade National Player of the Year, and Abdou Toure, who was not in the game but is the number 26 ranked overall prospect in the country. All these guys are composite 5 stars. We're going to bring Connor in. Let's go ahead and bring Connor in. Connor, if you're ready, we're going to bring you in here on the Ozarks Go hotline. Connor, if you don't read his stuff, you can check him out at Connor Goodson on X, and you can read all of his content at HawgSports. Connor, how's it going?
What's up, Trey? Can't complain. How about yourself?
I can't complain either. I'm feeling a little bit better. I was, under the weather when I did the last show, but I'm feeling a lot better and ready to get back out there for some spring football. And I know that you're anxious to see this transfer portal season begin, as many Razorback fans are. Like we've watched all these teams play this bully ball down low with these big guys, and Arkansas was just really lacking that this year. And the goal is going to be to try to resolve that with this transfer portal haul.
Yeah, no, definitely the size and physicality topic was very apparent in Cal's post-game presser right after the Arizona loss. And it's obviously been a consistent theme in talks of how they're going to rebuild and reshape this front court. There's a couple of targets that have come out that announced their intentions to enter the portal that I think Arkansas is going to be in the mix for. There's one guy that I just posted an update here a couple minutes ago that I'm hearing that Arkansas is probably the favorite for right now. They're going to obviously – Cal's not wanting to get into any bidding wars and things like that, but the market for big men is going to be expensive. You're going to have to shell out some money to get a respectable high-level starter.
Everybody else saw what we saw in the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. And so, there's you couple that with there's an expectation that that top-end, high-end talent's probably not going to be as deep as previous portal seasons because, the shortened time frame, it's going to move quick. You're not going to have guys having a month to decide whether they're going to, jump in or jump out or a month for teams to tamper and get people to jump in. So it's going to be interesting, but Arkansas is already kind of associated with a couple of names that have jumped in. And we're all kind of waiting for Malik Ewan to kind of be that first domino. He said to expect an announcement. Nobody really has a clear indication which way that goes. I posted a long update last night kind of laying out where talks had been and what I was hearing, kind of how that shaped out and maybe why, his representation did some of the things that they've done. So, right now we're just kind of waiting on pins and needles to see if he's the first domino to fall and how he decides what he's going to do will shape what Arkansas's staff does the rest of this portal season, because they're going to have to completely rebuild from scratch their front court if he's gone. But if he's back, you have a decent starting spot to kind of build around.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to be back. I could be wrong on that, but just from what I hear from sources, I don't feel like he is. And I think part of that could be, Connor, that his return isn't guaranteed, and even if it's likely that he gets the waiver, you've still got to wait on all of that. Can you afford, if you're Arkansas, when you have to address your front court, can you afford to wait around?
Yeah, no, definitely. And as of, last night, I was told that he still doesn't have a waiver. So he's still going to have to go through that process and they're going to have to work through that. And when you have this such short runway to really get things done, you can't afford to really wait on a process like that. And then, turns out in May or June or whenever, the NCAA decides, hey, by the way, this guy can't play. Then you're kind of just caught with your pants down, and there's not a lot of options you can go from there. So it's really interesting to see how that plays out. There's also the thought of like, what does are you able to harness what he gave you towards the end of the season for a full season? Because it was very touch and go throughout the year. At the beginning of the season, Malik Ewan's not a guy that I think a lot of people wanted to have back, but how pivotal he was down the stretch, the game against Hawaii, how he played against High Point, those are really big performances from him. So it's like, are you able to get that version of him all of next year? It's a big question mark for Arkansas for sure.
Yeah. We all know that we want to see some more physicality down low and better defense and stuff. Looking at these freshmen, Connor, I'm not so sure, and I know everybody's in love with Jordan Smith, and I am too. I think he's got just a super talent, very different than Acuff. I'm really intrigued with Trey.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure that when it's all said and done that he might not be the best one when you think about his size, his athleticism, and how much he's improved as a shooter. What are your thoughts on that? Am I off base on that? It's not the popular opinion.
No, and he's kind of flown under the radar because he
really under the radar for a guy that talented.
Yeah, and he was really, really underrated, I feel like, when Arkansas picked him up. And I think people kind of went back and gave him a second and third look after Arkansas was after he committed to Arkansas, and that's seen his stock kind of rise a little bit. Now it's not on the level of JJ Andrews, it's not on the level of Jordan Smith Jr., but yeah, I think that this guy, a lot of people are kind of sleeping on him to be able to come in and immediately contribute. Now, with all three of these guys, they're obviously rough around the edges. They're not complete products. Obviously, they all have different question marks. Offensive question marks are going to be big with this group compared to last year, where there was no question that Malik Thomas and Darius Acuff were all offense. Like, they had enough offense, but it was the defensive end where there was question marks. Mm-hmm. This group's kind of the opposite, but I think Abdou Toure, I think he's got the chance to really, I love his jump shot too. I think that he's got really smooth jumper, really good mechanics too, and he's really cerebral about getting to his spots and not really, taking a ton of bad shots. Like, his shot selection, I think, is going to be able to allow him to stay on the floor more than your typical freshman, to where, sometimes they get a little, antsy and start throwing up ridiculous shots, making stupid mistakes. I think that, his cerebralness, and then also he's just a plus athlete too, which, I'm right there with you. He impresses me, and I think that people are sleeping on him for sure.
Well, I mean, I like that he's got a nice shooting stroke, obviously. Mm-hmm. I like that he can hit his head on the rim at 6'5". Yeah. I mean, this guy is super athletic. Like, I just think the ceiling for him is because of what a leaper he is. Now, Jordan Smith is what, 6'3"?
Yeah, 6'3". I think he's officially listed as 6'3".
I mean, when he goes up, like, you think he's about to lay it in and he flushes it. Like, yeah. All the time. It looks so graceful and smooth. Where do these guys fit in? I mean, especially like if you're able to bring back Malik Thomas, you're talking about, I mean, you've got Trey, who's 6'5", Andrews, who's what, 6'6". You've got, maybe DJ Wagner coming back, maybe Billy Richmond coming back, Carter Knox maybe coming back. I'm leaving somebody out, aren't I?
Did you say Billy?
I think I said Billy. I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. But anyway, a lot of guard types, small forward types on this roster.
Yeah, it's definitely a logjam at the wing. And if you do bring a guy like Malik Thomas back, I think that there might be kind of an odd man out scenario, because that's a lot of mouths to feed. And I feel like Calipari isn't going to just get rid of or expect one of his freshmen that he's been recruiting for a year and making all these promises to. He's probably not going to, be like, well, sorry, you're out of the rotation. It might be a scenario where you see one of these guys maybe, look elsewhere for a role or something like that. But it's a big if with Malik Thomas if he does return. But even if he doesn't return, there's still a log jam at the wing spot. And there's Arkansas is really, really good at that spot with depth and everything. But I think right now you're looking at maybe you have DJ Wagner, who I think with his final year at Cal, you're probably going to give him more of an initiator, primary ball handler role, kind of let him work as Jordan Smith Jr. maybe grows into that lead guard responsibility and kind of tightens up and polishes those lead guard skills. You kind of let DJ Wagner run the show because he's shown he's more than comfortable there. Then, there's stretches where Jordan Smith Jr. can play the two. I think with like JJ Andrews and Abdu Torre, I think that you can get those guys, at the 2 or 3 spot with Billy Richmond. And if a guy like JJ Andrews is able to go down and play the 4 a little bit, maybe you live with that. I mean, he's really, really big. And he reminded me of those kind of traditional big men when at the McDonald's All-American game, when he got that ball in the high post and he just went to work, just backing guys down, really finding his spot, not settling for a bad shot. I think that you could really maybe move him down to the 4 and play some small ball there. A lot of versatility with this group though. And definitely there's a lot of different options with how you can play. Depth's not going to be a concern there. So that's a plus for Arkansas, definitely. But I'm very interested to see how Calipari handles this because I think there are so many options.
So for these bigs, I mean, we're not expecting them to add any guards or even, small forward types, but with these bigs, like who are some of the top names out there? Who should we be kind of keeping our eye on?
Yeah. Right now, Somto Cyril from Georgia is the target that I would keep a close eye on. We saw what he was able to do against Arkansas earlier this season. Arkansas didn't really have a ton of trouble finishing on teams and getting to the rim and getting easy buckets close to the rim and carving teams up in the paint. They didn't have trouble all year, but then when they went to Georgia, Somto Cyril really shut them down and made them an outside shooting team. So just his physicality, his size, the way he's able to dictate games, and he's kind of that guy that everything that Arkansas struggled with and everything that Calipari talked about in his postgame press conference where they needed to get better at. He is that. Like he's not going to step out and shoot a 3 or anything like that. He's literally just, if you want a physical rebounding enforcer, that is Somto Cyril. And I think that Arkansas is in a good spot there. He was committed to Calipari at Kentucky before Calipari was hired at Arkansas, ended up going to Georgia for payday. Arkansas was actually rumored with him a little bit last portal cycle if he would have jumped in. Ended up staying a second year at Georgia, had a breakout year this year. It looks like Arkansas could be in a good spot whenever this portal cycle opens with him. And then there's a bunch of other names at the 4 spot. Keanu Dawes from Utah is a name that we've heard thrown around. Kwame Evans from Oregon's another guy at the 4 spot. And then there's a couple other names to really consider that Arkansas has been tied to in the past. Mosila from Georgia Tech. He's a guy that Arkansas almost landed out of high school, but last minute bag drop. He turned Arkansas down to go to Georgia Tech. Maybe the interest is there, maybe it's not. But he's a guy that could come in, has a insane potential as well. But those are the kind of names right now. And then there's a few names that you kind of keep an eye on. You don't know if they're going to jump in. You don't know if they're not. But some other high name or high power, high major guys that could possibly jump in here before the portal opens. That if they do, Arkansas is probably going to be all over.
All right, Connor, you've had some time to look at the Final Four. Who do you like?
Let
me tell you real quick on Bet Saracen.
Yeah.
On Bet Saracen, you've got UConn at +2, which again, that to me surprised me. When we were talking the other day, we both liked the underdogs in this. UConn is +2 against Illinois, and Arizona is +1 against Michigan. And I'll give you the over-unders if you want to take some of that. The over-under for UConn and Illinois is 139.5, which is basically 70 to 69.
Yeah.
Michigan and Arizona is 157.5, so a little more normal of an over-under there.
So I saw an interesting stat the other day that the team since 2018, the team that eliminates Duke in the NCAA tournament has gone on and immediately lost their next game since 2018.
Right.
So they're calling it the Duke curse, I guess. So if that pattern holds, you kind of got to like Illinois. and I don't know if I've just been maybe buying into the Illini propaganda, but it does. I really do like Illinois, and I've kind of been following them from afar this year, and I like what they do. I think
Is it all Eastern European propaganda?
I think it might be. I think it might be that's it's crazy how Brad Underwood builds his rosters, man. I mean, he's just got an assembly line of those guys coming in. But no, I kind of like Illinois in this matchup as kind of just a sneaky, maybe not an upset play, but I definitely think that there's something there with Illinois in that matchup. And then on the other side, I feel like Arizona is the very popular pick, but I don't know. My guts kind of changed to where maybe I can see Michigan coming in there, and if they're playing like they have been those last couple games, I kind of like Michigan. But I don't know. I could be way off there. What do you think?
I think I'm taking UConn and Arizona. I think I'm sticking to my guns, and I mean that over/under seems too good to be true for that game, but I still like the over. I mean, I can't see 70-69. I can't either, especially with just, I don't expect UConn to come out and go like what 1 of 15 or 18 or whatever they were again. And Illinois is pretty good offensively too. So I think I'm leaning towards Illinois, but as much as I've kind of talked myself maybe into Michigan making this a game, I still think Arizona, I'll probably pull the trigger on Arizona here on that side. Okay, Connor. All right, appreciate you. And read all of Connor's stuff at HawgSports. He's got plenty of inside information. He's going to keep you abreast of everything that's happening with the transfer portal and really paint the picture of this roster building season for us. Appreciate you, Connor.
Thanks, Trey.
Okay, we'll be right back with Kevin Bohannon to talk Razorback baseball.
Arkansas's Fab Five for Bet Saracen.
Man, I love Bet Saracen's promo page.
Promos, man. Lots of options for profit boosts, bonus bets, and more.
Who you flirting with now, Pat?
Not flirting, working. Talking with my Bet Saracen host. She's putting together an event for VIPs.
You know any?
Come on, man, I'm the shooter.
And only Bet Saracen has hosts.
Bet Saracen.
Oops. I'm going to get rid of you there, Connor. All right, Kevin Bohannon joined us on the Ozarks Go hotline. You can reach out to them at 479-684-4900 or go to ozarksgo.net/hogs. Somebody mentioned to me when I say that I haven't unplugged my router in like almost 5 years that maybe it's time to get a new router just from updated technology, but I have never unplugged it. Reach out to our friends at Ozarks Go if you haven't done so already, if you're looking for fast, reliable, consistent internet service. Kevin, you step away for a little while for personal reasons. You leave poor Danny West to cover 3 straight losses and turn around and they lost to Missouri State on Tuesday, 15-14 and 10. What's going on with this team? I mean, do we need to look at this rotation? I mean, obviously we got to look at something here.
Yeah, it's everything at this point. You got a team that is inconsistent offensively, and recently the pitching has just blown up to one of the worst stretches under Matt Hobbs. What they did against Florida last weekend. Starting pitching goes 7 1/3 inning. You start to use multiple guys out of the bullpen. Now it's just about stringing together a game to where you can get 27 outs, and that's what Arkansas is going to have to do on Friday and Saturday. There's only one starting pitcher announced, and you're going back to the days of 2016. There's a lot of superlatives going back to that terrible season where Arkansas went 26-29, 7-23 in the SEC, and lost their last 13 games of the season. Why? Because of the inconsistent play. Dave Van Horn has built his reputation on accountability, and there seems to be a lack of that among the players right now. And I say that because, look, these guys were brought to the University of Arkansas to be professionals. They're getting paid to play right now, but their ultimate goal is to get drafted and get to play professional baseball. And they're not taking that approach right now every day. Maybe they want to, but it doesn't seem like the performance is there. So you look at it one of two ways. It's either effort or talent, skill level. And if it's effort, that's something that you can, as a coach, you can start to move players around, get players out of the lineup. Keo Lloyd needs to be out of the lineup right now because he has, cut down on 5 3/4 inches of the plate. He can't touch the outside third of the plate, Trey. He's that bad. You know, I missed the 4 or 5 games. When I come back, I noticed how closed off he was. His front shoulder is pointing towards right center field because they're trying to keep him on the ball longer, and he still strikes out 5 times. So he needs to sit and watch. He needs to make some adjustments before he gets back on the field because it's not helping the team. And there's pressure like that. The pitching staff puts pressure on themselves to be too fine. They're trying to strike everybody out. I've seen more 2-strike hits this year than I have in the previous 10. So, yeah, it's a collection on both sides of the ball to where they need to get back to the fundamentals that got them to where they're at as a program.
Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned that 2016 team. I can remember that team started off 8-0, 15-2, I think, heading into SEC play. And people were talking, this is the team. This is the team that's going to get it done, national championship. And then I think they lost 3 straight against South Carolina to open SEC play, and it was just downhill from there. This team started off a little bit. I mean, they didn't start off great, but they didn't start off quite as hot. I mean, they had a decent start in SEC play. Can this thing be turned around? Is this who Arkansas is? Have they exhausted all of their options and ideas, or can this still be turned around and get Arkansas to Omaha?
The performance level of the players can be turned around. I believe it can, but wins and losses are a byproduct of effort and what you do on the field. And Brian O'Connor made a great statement on Wednesday night after Mississippi State beat whoever they did 12-0. And he said, I let them have it because it's about showing up, and excellence is not an option every day. If they come to do what we set out to do in our program, wins will be a byproduct of it. The team has not lost since Arkansas beat them in Game 3. They're 7-2 in the SEC. They're on top. They're number 2 in the nation, number 2 in the SEC behind Texas. And that's, what Arkansas is used to being like right now. So for the fans and the media out there, they're not used to this. They're not used to seeing Arkansas start off 4-5. The last time that happened, 2016. This will be the first time in 8 seasons that Arkansas does not have an 8-4 or better record after 12 games in the SEC. They tied LSU, who did it from 91 to 98 with that last year. So, yeah, they need to get back to the basics and figure it out. And you're going to start seeing a lot of young guys. We've already seen it. Christian Turner and Carter Rutenbar played in the outfield the other night side by side. Micah News should make a return on Thursday at Auburn. That'll slide Turner over to left field. But you got to look at it like this, Trey. You're either going to be playing freshmen or guys that will not be in your program next year because of either the draft or graduation. So this is the Dave Van Horn looking ahead to the future and say, okay, do I get the young guys ready? Is this season kind of a lost cause? But the players have to prove that. There are some guys that are still playing for something. Ryder Hilfert, Camden Kojal, even somebody like Zach Stewart, who's a fourth-year guy who needs to show that he is worthy of a draft pick, a draft slot instead of a free agent spot. So if you look at it talent-wise, this team is not as talented as we thought they were.
Yeah. They're 4-5 in SEC play now, 19-11 overall. And they've got, 6 SEC games coming up away from home. You've got UALR, Little Rock on Tuesday, April 7th, but you're at number 18 Auburn, and today's game is at 6 o'clock. Friday's game's at 6. Saturday game at 2. Tonight's game is, by the way, on ESPN2. I think that might be the only game that's not on SEC Network. I think there may be a Georgia game on ESPNU. Yeah, Georgia's on ESPNU. But then after that, you're at Alabama. I mean, just looking ahead a little bit to what's on the horizon, and then maybe, I don't know, take us a little bit to the postseason. What kind of projection you have in your crystal ball?
Yeah, so right now you're hoping to win 2 out of 6 at Auburn and at Alabama. This is the old thing with the SEC of what they've done. They used to have Mississippi State and Ole Miss back-to-back every year for Arkansas until they did away with the division. Now they got Auburn and Alabama back-to-back on the road. Alabama's one of the hottest teams in the league right now. So at best, you clip them in a series, maybe. You're looking at hopefully getting 2 out of 6 right there. So, that puts you at 6-9 right there. Then you got Georgia at home. The good thing is Georgia is at home. You're not going to sweep Georgia. I'm sorry. Georgia scores too many runs. They hit too many home runs, and they'll have a field day at Baum Stadium. they better hope the wind is blowing out of the south at that point. Usually about the midpoint of April it does. Then it lightens up a little bit. You go to Missouri. Arkansas has swept them each of the last 2 seasons. It's still hard to do it on the road, but if Arkansas can get a sweep, that would be a good one right there. Ole Miss is down a little bit, but then you get Oklahoma. That's Hawaiian Heat Vinyl Night on the first night of that. They're ranked number 11th right now, 4 years off being a national runner-up. So Skip Johnson's team is playing really well. Then you end the season at Kentucky. You're looking at about a 15-15 team right now, or 14-16. That's going to be about a 2 seed. And right now, D1 Baseball has them projected to go to Corvallis, Oregon for a regional. And that's quite a trip to being a 2 seed. You don't want to be a 2 seed, take care of business.
All right, Cabo, great stuff as always. Appreciate you. Glad to have you back. And
Yes, sir.
look forward to more great coverage from you. And hopefully the baseball team can match it.
That's right. Thanks, Trey.
Yeah. All right, buddy. All right, everybody. That's Kevin Bohannon. Follow him at Cabo Baseball Guru on X and read all of his content at HawgSports. Also provides a lot as far as football. Cabo was a 2-sport athlete back at Rhodes College, so he's got baseball and football in his background. So, okay, we're going to get to some questions here, maybe play a little bit of video from the press conference here the other day. But I'd like to tell you about our new friends. You guys know how much I value long-standing relationships. Well, I've known Bo Biddle for 25 years. And when I needed car insurance, when I needed homeowners insurance, when I needed business insurance for HawgSports, I called Biddle Armstrong. Bo, Rob Armstrong, and their team have over 100 years combined experience. They work with you just like Auto Owners Insurance works with them. Expect local support from somebody you know. Questions about your policy? Call Biddle Armstrong direct rather than a 1-800 number. Auto Owners Insurance intended it that way so you don't have to wait on hold forever. Don't settle for a generic policy. Wherever you are in Northwest Arkansas, give Biddle Armstrong Insurance a call at 479-443-0808 or visit ba-ins.com. Auto Owners Insurance owns an AM Best rating, A+ superior. They trust people like Bo to work for you. Biddle Armstrong Insurance. Coverage you need, people you trust. Okay. I love having sponsors that I have long relationships with, people who are Razorback fans. It means a lot. Some people say like, hey, Trey, what's with the new ads and stuff? Like we break in ads now that are live reads from local companies, people who support the Razorbacks instead of having YouTube interspersed ads. I think it's a lot better. And we appreciate people like Biddle Armstrong Insurance for supporting what we do at HawgSports, and also big Fayetteville family, big Razorback supporters also. All right. Let's see where we want to go now. Do we want to go to some questions? Spring football. Let's see what people have dialed up for us. Okay. So we always post questions on the Razor's Edge. I might get to some of the comments too. If you want to leave a comment, then we'll see if we can get to those too. How many practices does it normally take for you to get a feel? Oh, you know what? That's the last one. Hey, you know what? Actually, I wanted to bring this up because I had a question that I thought about a lot last week, and it was basically asking, because I bring up Mike Washington and how I noticed him day one, and I bring up Rohan Jones, noticed him right off the bat. And people are asking me, like, who's this year's version of that? And I've been thinking about that because I didn't mention Jaquavian Smith. Jaquavian Smith, like, you don't know who that is, do you? Well, he's pretty much been starting with the first group at linebacker since day one of camp. He's the transfer from, it's like Howard or something, right? Let me see where he transferred to. So, yeah, he was at Howard, and now he's at Arkansas. He was pretty, not well known. Like, I can't even tell you off the top of my head his stats, but he's, 6'1", 225. He has a look about him to me that I didn't expect. Jeremy Evans, who played at Baylor. Now, Evans was a former 4-star prospect, but he wasn't really a big contributor at Baylor. But there's not a better looking linebacker really on the team. Like when you look at the way he's put together, I think he's listed at 6'1", 220, but he looks really big. So those are a couple of guys I think at linebacker. I'm just going to kind of scroll through here real quick and tell you who just kind of pops off to me. I mentioned Chris Marshall, who doesn't count because he was a former 5-star prospect. Of course, we expect him to look fantastic. Courtney Crutchfield, I've mentioned. I think Courtney looks really good. Courtney was up to 207 pounds, 207 when he got here. He's down to like 187 right now. 186, I think, something like that. So that's like 21 pounds that he has lost. Just came in kind of out of shape. Who else jumps out to me? I always like Ismail CC. DeQuane Prevost has opened a lot of eyes, and I believe he supposedly had his best practice on Tuesday also. I mentioned who's my offensive lineman? Josiah Clemens, 6'7", 326, looks the part. I mean, he really looks the part. I like all the looks of all those new defensive linemen that have come in. I mentioned Jaquavian. I mentioned Jeremy. Yeah, so those would be just a couple of guys here and there that jump out to me, that guys that weren't like super highly regarded as transfers or as recruits. But the guy that popped up in my head was probably Jaquavian Smith, especially since he comes from Howard, not a guy that anybody really knows in this state. So you're talking about, and that's kind of what I had said when I saw Mike Washington and when I saw Rohan Jones. Like, not a lot of people know who those guys are, but by the end of the year, everybody in the state is going to know who those guys are. And now we're looking Jones. I don't guess is going to get drafted, but he'll get picked up by somebody. He'll have a chance. And Mike Washington has definitely played his way with the season that he had in the NFL Combine, running that 4.33. He's definitely put himself in position to be drafted. Okay, I want to play a quick clip real quick. This is about a minute. This is with Larry Smith, the new wide receivers coach, and Mitch Stewart, the new quarterbacks coach. Had a really good interview with those guys. 1 minute.
Now it's about building those calluses and how they operate and the decisions they make. Over the break, they all took VR goggles home with them so that they could watch the first 3 installs while they were over break. We were joking because one of them said, yeah, man, I was running a QB draw and I almost ran into the room. I forgot that I wasn't, on the field and all of that kind of. My mom's like, hey, stop. Obviously, KJ's got a unique skill set. Dude's very athletic, but he's very cerebral too. And then AJ, obviously, I've got a lot of experience with him, being around him. Another, very, very high cerebral kid. Very smart football player. Probably not quite the mobility that KJ has. Then you got Braden, who's played a lot of ball. Braden Fuller, who's a D2 guy. And then Cade Trotter. There's the 4th dude who's, just ultra passionate. Like that dude, he gets the crowd going. All of them bring different things to the table, and then collectively makes them a lot of fun to be around.
I should have just said this is Mitch Stewart talking about quarterbacks, but I forgot that it was just that. But Larry Smith was a really good interview also. I mean, he used to play quarterback at Vanderbilt. We were talking to him afterwards and, about that game where they came to Fayetteville. Ryan Mallett's on the team. I think this was the 2010 team. He's like, yeah, they beat the crap out of us. I was like, yeah, we did. Okay, so let's get to a couple of questions here. Mr. Pig says, do we have a short list of possible or interesting sharpshooters to keep an eye out for? I don't see them bringing in anybody that is not currently on the roster or isn't a freshman. That I think everybody they're bringing in is going to be a big. If things work out the way that they want them to, I should say, in terms of bringing the guys back, then I don't see them going out and adding anybody. I think they've got guys that can shoot the ball. I mean, Darius Acuff, there were people talking about concern over well, he's not a really good shooter. I mean, in the middle of the SEC play, I was sitting with Bo, who I just mentioned a minute ago, and we're sitting there talking, and we're like, he's just not he's not an assassin like Thomas is, and I think I can't remember who they were playing. It might have been Auburn. I can't remember who they were playing. I don't think it was Auburn. Maybe it was. Anyway, they I think he knocked down five threes in that game, and just kind of went on a tear after that. I was like, this shows how much we know. I think Trey can shoot. I think he's got a nice stroke. I think he's got a lot of potential. Jordan Smith, yeah, I don't know that it's going to be a massive. Now they may not be if they don't have Malik Thomas back. It's not going to be as great a shooting team as it was, this year. But I don't think that that's a priority for him right now. Dogtown Hog says, what's the anticipated budget for basketball? I don't think that there's a guy that played on that court last year that didn't make $1 million. So, I mean, the basketball budget is what it needs to be, whatever it is. It's going to be a budget that is going – we're never going to get that specific information. I mean, Kentucky, it's just rumors about their $22 million roster. But, Jordan Smith, like guys that are 5-star prospects are, at least a couple $1 million or more, alone. And you've got 3 of those guys coming in, right? So start right there. And then you talk about some of the guys that you'd like to bring back. I mean, you don't think Billy Richmond could go out and get a ton of money if he hit the transfer portal? So you got to pay Billy Richmond, a lot of guys like that. And then Malik Thomas, Malik Thomas could go to the NBA. So you got to offer him, equal or better, So you got to factor all that in. So it's going to be a lot. Are they actually looking to get 4 bigs? Not seeing it. Yeah, I mean, when I heard that, I was like, that's I had the same reaction as everybody. 4 bigs, but like, how do you not get 4 bigs? You don't have any bigs on this team. Like even now with Samito and Zavaj, like with those guys who don't even play, they're bigs on this roster. They're scholarship players who are and I heard, one of those guys even cost quite a bit of money. Maybe they thought they were going to get a little bit more out of him. So you've got, you had 3 guys that played for you last year. And then, those 2 guys sitting on the bench, like, you know what I mean? Like, just because you say you're going to get 4 bigs doesn't mean they're all going to be great. But I hear they really, really want, 4 guys. And by bigs, I mean like power forward, center types. If UM returns, would they still get a legit starting center? If UM returns, then I think they only had 3, but that's not what I hear is happening. Again, things can change. Everything's fluid right now. You may think that you have a guy, in mind that's going to be, who you bring in, and it might not work out. So who knows? Sompto, for example, would they still get a legit starting? Yes, they're going to go out and get a legit starting. Like, I don't see how you can't go through what you had this year and not do that. Like with Muss, it seemed like when he was here, it was like whoever beat them in the NCAA tournament, they went out and tried to replicate that team. Like, remember when Baylor beat them and they went out and got all that speed? Baylor had so much speed at guard, and they went out and got all those guys with speed and stuff, like trying to emulate the team that beat them. But it's kind of like, when you have a coaching change, you go out and get a guy who's very different. You have Sam Pittman, an older, kind of more methodical type of guy, and you bring in Ryan Silverfield, a more upbeat, younger type of guy. It's always and the guy before Pittman. Pittman's just kind of an old school football coach. Before him, you had Chad Morris, who was all like rah rah and full of slogans and stuff like that. And Pittman was the exact opposite of him. Brett Bielema was very different than Bobby Petrino, in terms of personality and, how he related with people. It's like you're going to bring in, you don't always just bring in the same type of team. So it's going to be a very different looking team aside from the guys that they're working to bring back. If UM returns, will they still get a legit starting center? Yes. I would think UM would go, be more of a 4. And then add a backup 5 or look for more of a stretch 4 type option or both. Again, I don't know that it pushes Knox out or not. I don't know. Knox would be the most curious one, I guess, with Malik Thomas if he goes to the NBA or not. But what I hear is they're looking to add 4 bigs. That's what I hear. And I heard that again yesterday from somebody else. Willie B. Hardigan. Yep. We need a few European big men that have been smoking cigarettes since age 7. Yeah, got some alimony. That was one of maybe the funniest line I think that Calipari delivered. It's like, he's waving to his kids up in the stands and he's using his NIL money to pay his alimony for his first wife. Like that's where we are with college football or college basketball. Dr. Scotty Mack says, will we hire more than 8 actual contributors? Do we have the same budget as last year? I think it still comes down to playing 8 guys. And yeah, from what I understand, the budget is going to be strong once again, thanks to John Tyson and, a lot of other people. It's not just Tyson. The Hunts obviously have been historically very big for basketball as well. But, there are others, Stevens, so on and so forth. A lot of people helping basketball. But, yes, from what I understand, the budget will be strong for basketball. And, Cal plays 8 usually. So you're going to have guys coming in competing. Now, it's hard to sell somebody on the idea of sitting the bench, in this day and age. But I don't know, maybe money talks. I don't feel like Arkansas is going to let themselves get into a situation like they did this year where Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, all those guys, if they'd have had a big who was like legitimately dangerous, aside from Trevin, Trevin wasn't more, Trevin is more of a high flyer, a guy that can step out and knock down threes. He wasn't a guy that's, 6'9", 250, just banging down there, down low. If they'd have had a guy like that, who knows what this team would have done. And so I don't think that you only have so many opportunities with Calipari. Like he's going to help 25, 30 families. I don't know what the number is at right now, but that's what he said. So you can't waste this time with him by, having teams that are just kind of incomplete. If you're going to go all in with a guy like Calipari, you got to go all in financially. Obviously certain promises were made when he came here. But it's up to him ultimately to build that roster, him, Ronnie Brewer, the whole gang over there. So, hey, I'd like to tell you about our friends over at Blakeman's Fine Jewelry. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry is proud to be the official jeweler of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Ben Blakeman and his team had an exciting year in their new flagship space at 3202 Pinnacle Hills Parkway in Rogers and are continuing their signature hospitality and service in 2026. Visit them and they'll offer to clean your jewelry, offer you a coffee beverage from Cafe B, or a glass of their own Blakeman's Prosecco, which, by the way, is offered in various stores in Northwest Arkansas. And if you can't make it there, did you know you can also shop them online at blakemansfinejewelry.com? It's time to start thinking about Mother's Day. So visit our friends over at Blakeman's. Built on tradition since 1987, Blakeman's has been Northwest Arkansas's trusted destination for exceptional jewelry and personalized service. Blakeman's Fine Jewelry, where Arkansas gets engaged. Okay, see if we got any more questions. We might have to check into the comments real quick. Yeah, we got some. Trey, for the Hogs to take the next step in football, we have to consistently start getting more next level NFL guys. Not sure how many we have on this team or this year's, unfortunately. Joshua 11, I had a similar thought. Like, how many NFL guys are on this team? Let's think about it off the top of my head. Well, first of all, the most important thing with this squad is figuring out quarterback. That is the area that concerns me the most. I really look at this team like, okay, they got enough depth everywhere. This is the first team that's like really, I felt like the model that I create, the 3 deep plus 1, some of y'all make fun of that name, I don't know. But that's the model that I create to build a perfect roster. It gives you a 3 deep plus 1. So example, you have 5 starting offensive linemen. You need 15 starting offensive linemen. You need an extra interior guy, an extra tackle. Gives you 17, 3 deep plus 1. Okay. So that's the kind of model that I create. And if you do that and you extrapolate it through the entire team, you end up with about 85 players. Now, the number is 90 now that they've all the SEC athletic directors have agreed on. So you have a little more space there. But ultimately, this roster, and even with defensive back, where I say like you need 18 defensive backs, scholarship players we're talking about, they're like right there. Offensive line, I think they ended up with 15, so they're a little bit short there. But pretty much everywhere they have quarterback. I'd like to maybe see one more, and I guess they have Hank Hendrickson rolling early, so maybe that takes care of that. But they pretty much have done that from a depth standpoint. I look at that defensive line and I see one guy after another, like 6'3", 315, 310, 6'3", 310, 315, 6'4", one guy after another. They did not have those body types last year, and they're not just bodies. They are, a guy like Zadavian Sims, who was a top 100 type prospect, who went to Oregon. Hunter Osborne, who started his career at Alabama, 4-star recruit. Trajan Odom, who was a 4-star recruit, went to Ohio State. Carlin Jones, 4-star recruit, went to USC, and all those guys are on the younger side. Osborne's a little bit older, but Osborne also has played more than any of those guys. And the other guys kind of, there's guys ahead of them at these big-time schools who, were equally highly regarded. So that's something that jumps out to me. You don't see like that, 350-pound nose guard. That may be the one thing that's kind of missing, unless you look at the younger guys like Danny Beal or especially Kennedy, who's about 6'5", 335 or more maybe. But what stands out to me when I look across this team is like they have players at wide receiver. They have offensive linemen, defensive linemen. The numbers are good at linebacker, at cornerback. Safety, you got to maybe get lucky with a guy here or there. But nickel is strong. I think nickel can be strong. But it's quarterback. Quarterback coaching, I'll say what they really emphasize so far that I see, they've emphasized special teams in practice a lot more special teams period than I'm used to seeing early in practice. We get about an hour worth of viewing time. I think practice 3 we had maybe close to an hour and a half, but we get about an hour generally. Work a lot on ball security. That seems to be something they are harping on extremely hard. And a lot of RPO, a lot of working on screen game, but pretty much every play is going to have the option pass. Pretty much that's just how it's going to be. The stack is smaller. The play, talking to the players, Petrino was just like, pro style offense. He's got this huge playbook. This playbook is not going to be as big. It's going to be, now the same play may have 3 different options for you, but the stack isn't as big as far as offense goes. But to me, it's going to come down to, do you have a quarterback? And it's very unknown. If this team had a proven quarterback, I would feel like, okay, this team can win, 7 games or maybe more. Right now, it's hard for me to even say like, oh, they won 5. Like it's hard for me to say that because I don't know what they have at quarterback, and I don't think the coaches are going to know what they have at quarterback. It's just such a difficult position to evaluate. You just don't know what you got until they get out there and play. Even Sam Pittman said that with KJ Jefferson. We didn't know what we had. We didn't know he could run that well. You never put him in a situation where he had to run for his life, I don't dislike the talent. I think it's clear to me, as I've said before, that they've got more resources, more money that they've spent on this roster. There are guys on this roster that were really coveted by other teams. I just wonder about quarterback. And as I like to say, Arkansas is not the only team with access to the transfer portal. A lot of other teams can access the transfer portal and get great players. Like there's no reason you should be relying heavily on a true freshman. I always bring up like that 2015 team, and like if you go through that list, there's so many NFL players on that roster. But what the list doesn't show is the holes that they had. They had to play a true freshman here in a starting role or a backup role or play a redshirt freshman. I mean, you look at this team right now, who's like that? Nobody on the offensive line. I mean, you're going to be starting either a redshirt sophomore or redshirt freshman at quarterback. At running back, you've got some veteran options there. You've got veteran options at wide receiver, at tight end. On the defensive line, you've got guys that are in their 3rd and 4th years that you're primarily going to be relying upon. Linebacker, you've got experienced players, Bradley Shaw and, Wyatt Simmons, who's played a little bit here, and, Jaquavian Smith and, some of the other guys, Ben Bowell that they brought in. Cornerback, you've got some very experienced players there. And you have some experience at safety. You've also got some question marks at safety. You're talking about guys that maybe weren't as highly coveted in the transfer portal as some other places. But you're not looking at your freshman saying, we got to have that guy play. We need him to step up this year. Good thing he enrolled early. We need him. Like, it's just not where you are. And, I think they did a good job overall acquiring talent and following it the way we did. I mean, we were living in it, like especially Danny West. Like we were in there. It's just like feel like we lived in a computer for those 2 weeks and a little bit beyond that. And just watching how it unfolded, it was especially early on. They didn't get Carius Curran out of the gate, and everybody's just like, "Oh my God, we have no money. We're terrible. We suck." All this kind of stuff. And then things started rolling. You get Joker Johnson and Kamori House and Bryant Wood, like some of the names that started jumping on. You're like, okay, you don't get this guy unless you have funds. So it's going to come down to quarterback, guys. And how well they, this team gels, how well. And I shouldn't just limit it just to that and put the onus just strictly on quarterback, but it's going to come down a lot to that, obviously. You got to protect the quarterback and all that stuff. But, you're looking at the football schedule, how things shake up early. That is something that I said so many times last year. People were like, well, what do you think about this season? And I'm like, well, they could go 8-5. They can go 5-8. People are like, what? What are you talking about? Well, how things start. How things start is going to determine when you've got so many new guys that are trying to buy in, trying to build that bond, want to say, hey, these coaches are leading us right down the right path. These coaches know what they're doing. And the way Arkansas lost those games against Ole Miss and Memphis back-to-back, it's no wonder that they completely let go of the rope against Notre Dame, which I 100% saw coming. So that start, when you're talking about so many new faces, there's even more this year than last year, 42 transfer additions with 13 high school recruits, 4 JUCO players. I mean, most of your roster is new. I think there's only 26 players coming back on scholarship from last year. And a lot of those guys were hurt. I mean, guys like Ismail Cece and Antonio Jordan, a lot of them are freshmen, guys that redshirted last year that are back. It's not like guys that were playing huge roles for you. And in some cases there are. There's Bradley Shaw's back, of course, but that's kind of how it is. Arkansas football schedule. So if you go to Utah and you lay an egg, that to me is a huge game because you don't want to lose to Utah and then play Georgia the next week and get throttled. Like you start off 1-2, you got North Alabama to start, Utah, Georgia. Then you got a game against Tulsa. Okay. If you can come out of this first stretch 3-1, okay, there's a little momentum, a little belief, a little buy-in. Texas A&M at Texas A&M is going to be tough, of course. Tennessee and Fayetteville, that's not impossible. Who knows with Vanderbilt? Yeah, sure. I'm sure they'll have a good team. They gave up a ton. People look at Vanderbilt last year. They were the worst pass defense in the SEC, but they had Diego Pavia on the other side. They don't have him anymore. How's Vanderbilt going to be? You get Missouri on Halloween, October 31st. That messes up our Halloween plans. Unless it's a day game. Hopefully it's a night game. I'd love that game to be at night. But I love that they moved this Missouri game. That Missouri game being on the day after Thanksgiving, it just wasn't the draw that LSU can be, So for LSU, you're generally going to have, a close to packed stadium, So that LSU game is right where it needs to be. It never should have left that spot. Shame on Jeff Long for allowing that to happen. Frank Broyles never would have let that happen. I don't mean to hate on Jeff Long, but that never should have happened. At Auburn, I mean, are we convinced Auburn's even going to be good? Who knows what Auburn's got? South Carolina and Fayetteville, and I think this is Shane Beamer's last year. Though he's got Kendall Briles there now. Briles may be a good fit with that, the system they have. Isn't it interesting that they had Dow Loggins as offensive coordinator at South Carolina and now Briles? Isn't that interesting? Make sure that's right. I believe Kendall Browse is there, right? Yeah, South Carolina. Okay. At Texas, again, for the second year in a row. That's always going to be a challenge, and then wrap it up with LSU. Start 3-1, and there's an opportunity that this team could be a bowl team, And that's where the steps got to be. Like, I'm not looking at them and saying, oh, they're going to make this massive jump. Teams have done that before. 2016 did that. There was a big jump after back-to-back losing seasons. It can happen. Teams do that kind of stuff, but nobody's going to predict it to happen. Nobody's going to predict Arkansas to be any better than bottom 3 in the SEC this year. That's where they're going to end up being picked because they don't have a returning starter at quarterback. They didn't have success last year. They're going to be picked dramatically low. Okay, so those would be the expectations from the outside for Arkansas football. Let's see if we got anything. Let's see. Okay. Mainly comments. Comments. Okay. Appreciate everybody. That's the show for today. I want to thank Kevin Bohannon for hopping on. Thank Connor Goodson for joining us as well. Appreciate all their insight and appreciate your questions and all of our subscribers, of course, at HawgSports. We couldn't do what we do without you, but we also appreciate our free users as well because we rely on all of you. We rely on all of you to do what we do. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining me. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we will catch you on Monday.